Hello friends, my name is Shuchi Khanna and I am here to present the second presentation of History of Organization Development. A brief history of how OD actually evolved to help the organization and to reach its current state will help you to understand the whole concept in a better way. Organization development, just to remind you of what organization development is, it is actually a collection of planned interventions built on humanistic democratic values that seeks to improve organization effectiveness and employee well-being. OD values talks about respect for people, trust and support, confrontations, participation and power equalization. What we see today or what we read today as an organization development has never been what it eventually started with. So let me first cover with you the first organization history on 5 generations that they have covered. 5 stems of OD are laboratory training, action research and feedback, participative management, quality of work life and strategic change. The first, which is laboratory training, was actually the development of training groups, which is also known as sensitivity training or T groups. The second stem of OD was a classical work on action research, which was conducted by social scientists interested in applying research to managing change. An important feature of this action research was actually a survey feedback approach that they used. Kurt Lewin, a very instrumental person in development of T groups, survey feedback and action research, actually led to the creation of OD and today is still one of the most sorted out source of its concepts and methods. The third stem actually talks about participative management in organization development, structure and design between employer and employee. The fourth approach focuses on productivity and quality of work life. And finally, the fifth stem, or the most influenced current practice, involves strategic change and organization transformation. If I talk about year-wise evolution of OD, laboratory training, the whole concept actually started somewhere around year 1950 or 60. Then action research came into about 1960s. Total quality management that we talk about was in the year 1990s when they start developing, and finally the strategic change and organizational transformation. Now let's talk in detail about what laboratory training STEM is. Laboratory training is one of the pioneered stems of OD, which is a small or unstructured group in which participants learn from their own interactions and evolve dynamics about issues such as interpersonal relationships, personal growth, leadership, and group dynamics. Now actually, laboratory training began in 1946 when Kurt Lewin, now he is supposed to be known as the father of OD, started working on the laboratory tools. The first to conduct a laboratory tool was actually done at the research center MIT, where this group was asked to help them by doing research in training community leaders. A workshop was developed and the community leaders were all brought together to learn about and discuss about problems of leadership. At the end of the day, researchers discussed privately what behaviors and group dynamics that they had observed. The community leaders were then asked with the permission to sit down in these feedbacks. Now feedbacks are very confidential, so though the researchers were very reluctant to go ahead and share the feedback, yet they decided to make them attend the session. Now during this entire laboratory training STEM, researchers actually drew 2 conclusions. First was that feedback about group interaction was a very rich experience, and that the process of group building had the potential for learning what could be transferred to back home situations. So the very important part of laboratory training was that it has the potential of group building, team building exercises that we recently get into. this experience, the company, three trends emerged in the year 1950s. One was the emergence of regional laboratories. There was an expansion of year-round sessions of tea groups and the expansion of tea groups into business and industry, with NTL members becoming more and more involved with industry programs. This actually happened for next 10 years, where group meeting, group building, team building actually became the norm of the day. However, over the next 10 decades, trainers started actually feeling frustrated. They began to feel frustrated because they felt that whatever language, whatever interpretations, whatever data that they were collecting, they were not able to take that data back and transform it into more actionable and utilize it organization-wide. So if I know that in this group training or sensitivity training, I am aware it was more of a team building exercise rather than developing and organizing it at an organization level. So the organization, the training of teams applying T group techniques to organization gradually became a team building process, helping workers to become more effective in accomplishing tasks and satisfying member needs. However, it was becoming very difficult to transfer it to complex organizations. Therefore, laboratory training led to a development of some other instrument which we now talk about as action research STEM. Now, action research STEM contribution actually began in the year 1940s with a joint effort of Kurt Lewin, William White and John Collier. Action research STEM actually is more of a collaborative and a client-consultant relationship. They discovered, now these three people discovered that the research needed to be more closely linked to the action if organization members had to use it to manage change. What laboratory training could not do was that it could not apply it to organization-wide. Action research was actually the outcome of that frustration, that why were we not able to utilize it at organization level. Therefore, they discovered in the organization that a collaborative effort was initiated between organization members and social scientists to collect research data about organization functioning. Then the idea was to analyze the root cause of the problem and to devise and implement solutions. Once the implementation was done, the data was further collected to assess the result. And then the cycle of data collection and action kept on continuing. So actually, action research is more of data collection. It's an interactive inquiry that happens between the employees with the purpose of having a data to resolve a problem. Now, the result of action research were twofold. One, members of the organization were able to research about themselves more, and also the scientists, the social scientists who were involved in conducting action research in an organization were able to derive new knowledge that could be utilized elsewhere. Now, these studies did much to establish action research as an integral to the organization change. And today, I would say action research STEM is actually the backbone of every OD application that we are looking into. One of the key components of action research is actually data collection. Now, data collection, the process of data collection was created by a person named as René Likert, who was pioneer in developing scientific approach to attitude surveys called as Likert scale. The Likert scale was the feedback process that evolved was interlocking chain of conferences. The major findings of the survey was first reported to the top management and then transmitted throughout the organization. The feedback sessions were conducted in task group with supervisors and the immediate subordinates, discussing the data together. The researchers actually intuitively felt that this was a powerful process of change. If I talk about the Likert scale was actually a questionnaire which was widely used in survey research. When responding to a Likert questionnaire item, respondents specified their level of an agreement to a statement. And finally, the scoring and analysis is done. In this PPT, I have shared you one of the Likert scale that I was able to fetch from Wikipedia, and how the questions were framed, just to have an understanding of how friendly interface is actually Wikipedia. So it's simply a statement which is asked by the respondent to evaluate on a quantitative value, on an objective dimension with a level of agreement or disagreement. It wasn't a rating of 1 to 5 scale, but a rating of strongly agree to strongly disagree. It was very widely used and actually became the base of data collection in action research. I wanted to actually share of how an action research process works. It's very easy to explain it through this graph that I'm trying to show you. So if you see in this process, there is a key executive perception of the problem. Now there are consultations that happen with scientist consultants. Now data gathering starts happening. Feedback is taken, data gathering happens through Likert scale correction. Feedback is given to the key client or the client group, and then an activity is planned. We start observing on actions of what sort of actions will determine that the data that we gave and the input that we received is showing an improvement. Action planning, then data gathering, feedback to the client group, discussion and work on data feedback and data by client group, action planning, action on new behaviors, then again a data gathering on reassessment, discussion and work on feedback emerging data, action planning, action, etc. So action research process is actually an ongoing process. It is not possible that one day you take a data, that data, if you have to validate that data, it has to be reconstructed again and a feedback has to be taken. Action research actually is one of the most important backbones of organization development, because till date, whenever an organization tends to undergo change or development, this is the process that every organization go through. When the survey data is actually shared with managers, then they start talking about those data and start working on plan of action. The effectiveness of this method is that it deals with the system of human relationships as a whole, and it deals with each manager, supervisor, and employee in the context of his job, his own position, and his own work relationship. The aspect of process of feeding back data from an attitude survey to participating departments has a more positive change in the business organization, which is way effective than traditional training courses. So generally, when the organization faces a problem, they think about going ahead and making an employee undergo a training program. However, action research is much beyond that training program, and its impact has brought much more higher changes as compared to what training could not do. The next topic for me would be of second generation of OD is participative management, quality of work life, and strategic changes, which I plan to cover in my second presentation. If you have liked the video, please subscribe to our channel edupediaworld.com. Thank you so much for your patient listening. See you next time.